Good morning, students. At least it is morning for me as I record this. I'm not sure what time of day it is for you now, but this is going to be our first digital figurative language lesson, and it's going to be on metonymy, which I'm going to give you a heads up is the hardest figurative language you will learn about this year. So I'm excited for us to tackle this important type of figurative language. Down here we have a catchphrase for it. It takes a brain to find the connection. And this is actually also an example of metonymy. So let's get right down to discussing what this actually is. And just so you know, in your pickup packet, I included a glue-in for your figurative language section of your language arts notebook. So you can glue this paper into your language arts notebook, and just as usual, take notes by adding the definition and writing at least 3 examples of it, and then you can draw a picture of it in the picture square at the bottom. Okay, so if you've got all that ready, and if not, go ahead and push pause and get that ready. We'll continue. Metonymy is actually a fairly new figurative language. Maybe it doesn't look that new looking at the 1540s, but that's actually fairly new for language. And it comes from either late Latin or Greek, and it means to have a change of name. Basically what it means is where one word represents an entire idea, group, or sentiment. And you might think, well, what's the difference between this and metaphor? And the difference is not that you're turning a person into an object, it's that an object is representing either an idea or a group or like a sentiment or feeling. So for example, by saying my brother is an ox, I'm not saying an ox represents anything, I'm changing my brother into an ox. And in metonymy, there's no change happening, you're just representing something. Over here we have a picture example to help make this a little more clear. This says the pen is mightier than the sword. And what this is saying, it's kind of like an idiom too, but what this is saying is that your mind and your intellect and what you can say or write has a larger influence or power over people than forcing them physically to do something. And so the pen, that one word, represents this idea of intellect and using your communication and things like that. And the object sword represents physical strength or like force or making someone do something. And so that would be an example of a metonymy. Let's look at some more examples to help you understand. Right here it says, we must wait to hear from the crown until we make any further decisions. Now, of course, no one's actually waiting for this gold crown that's sitting by itself to speak to them and tell them what to do. The crown is an object that is representing the entire government or the monarchy that's going on, presumably a king or a queen that is going to make a decision for the rest of the country. And so again, the metonymy here is that the word crown is an object that represents something different, that represents something more. Another example would be the cup is quite tasty. And again, this is kind of also an idiom, you could say, because it means something different than what it sounds like. No one's probably actually eating this glass cup and saying that it's delicious. They would probably be in the hospital and would not be able to talk anymore. The cup is representing the drink or whatever is in it that the person is consuming or having. And so, again, the metonymy is the object cup is representing not the cup, but the water or the drink or the substance that's inside of the cup. This is another example that you probably have heard a lot in life, especially you sports fans. Here's like an example. The Yankees have been throwing the ball really well, and they have been hitting better than they have been in the past few seasons. Now, when I say Yankees, that represents everybody on the team. It represents the entire group. And so in sports, we hear this metonymy very, very often, like the Patriots are throwing the ball really well, or the Salt Lake Real are really getting their passes done correctly, or whatever. I'm not much of a soccer fan, so maybe that wasn't even a good example. But this is a really good example of metonymy that you will hear often in day-to-day life. Now let's look at some examples in literature. This is from a book called Gone with the Wind, and I grew up hearing about this book often because when my grandpa went to the movie theaters to see the movie they made about this book, he was horrified because he heard his very first swear word ever in a movie picture, and that is a true fact. This is the first movie made to ever say a swear word. But in this book, there is a quote by Margaret Mitchell that says, "I'm mighty glad Georgia waited till after Christmas before it secedes, or it would have ruined the Christmas parties." And this is actually a great example of metonymy since we've been talking a lot about the Civil War. Georgia was one of the southern states that left or seceded the rest of the Union because it disagreed with Abraham Lincoln becoming president and was worried about what Abraham Lincoln was going to do about slavery and maybe getting rid of it. And so when they say, "I'm mighty glad Georgia waited," the actual state itself wasn't making decisions. That spot of land wasn't deciding. It didn't care. That represents all the people in Georgia and the government in Georgia, the local government that decided to do that. And there's the metonymy again. Georgia, the state, represents everybody in it and all the people's feelings and emotions about leaving the Union. And in this, she's saying she's glad that they did it after Christmas so that they wouldn't spoil the holiday. So here's a little way to check and see how much you were understanding. I'm going to read this sentence, and each sentence, and I'm going to pause for about 3 or 4 seconds, and I want to see if you can either think or say out loud the correct answer. And then after 3 seconds, I'll say the correct answer, and you can kind of mentally see how you did. If you are stuck with this, and after doing this exercise you're still confused, feel free to hop on to the sign-up sheet for help and sign up for a slot on Language Arts, and I'd be so excited to meet with you one-on-one and explain this better and so that you can understand it fully. All right, the first one says, "If we do not fill out the forms properly, the suits will be after us shortly." So see if you can think what type of figurative language that is. If you answered metonymy, you are correct. So good job if you're able to get that. The next one says, "Let's build Legos and leap over them while eating licorice." Let's build Legos and leap over them while eating licorice. If you were able to answer alliteration, then you were correct. That was for the repeating L sound. Let's Legos leap licorice. The third one says, "The grass seemed to dance along with the wind." If you were able to answer personification, you were correct. The grass is a non-human object that we are having dance, which is a human characteristic, so it's been personified. The next one says, "The restaurant has been acting quite rude lately." If you were able to identify that as a metonymy, excellent work. Restaurant is the key word here. That is one object that is representing an entire staff or an entire restaurant, an entire group of people working at the restaurant, I should say. The next one says, "That guy is a real Bill Nye." I'll give you guys about 4 seconds. If you were able to answer allusion, that would be correct. You're alluding to Bill Nye. But you could also make an argument for a metaphor that we're turning him into Bill Nye. All right, next we have, "They have a love-hate relationship." I'll give you a few seconds. And this would be oxymoron. Love and hate are two opposite words standing next to each other to represent an idea. Love-hate. Next we have, "We needed to travel for 600 days to get to Disneyland." If you were able to identify that as a hyperbole, congratulations. That is a very large exaggeration. Unless they were traveling by snail, then maybe that was about accurate. Next we have, "Quick as thought, she raced home to eat lunch." Quick as thought, she raced home to eat lunch. If you were able to identify that as a simile, great job. We are saying that she is as fast as thought. We're comparing her to thought and saying they have quickness in common. Next we have, "That cop just got a speeding ticket." That cop just got a speeding ticket. and this is irony. It's ironic that a cop who normally gives speeding tickets got one himself. Next we have, this hot sauce has such a kick that one little sip or lick of it will make you want to quit. This hot sauce has such a kick that one little sip or lick of it will make you want to quit. Now this one's a little extra tricky. You might have said alliteration, and that would be correct. Specifically though, this is assonance. It's the repeating I sound that almost made it sound like it was rhyming even though it wasn't. Like kick, sip, lick, it, quit. All of that is that repeating vowel sound of a short I. Next we have, the White House will be announcing the decision around noon today. And this is another example of metonymy. The White House is an object that is representing an entire group of people that work and make decisions as part of our government in Washington, D.C. All right, last but not least, an elephant's opinion carries a lot of weight. An elephant's opinion carries a lot of weight. And this right here is a pun, because an elephant is extremely heavy, and so it physically has a lot of weight, but also saying your opinion carries a lot of weight is kind of an idiom saying that it matters a lot. And so that's a pun playing with an elephant's weight, both in its physical weight and that its opinion matters a lot. So that concludes our metonymy lesson. Again, if you want some more help understanding this figurative language, feel free to sign up for a time. I would be delighted to meet with you one-on-one. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.